The clock on your phone reads to 30 for PM. You're scrolling through social media, half listening to the hum of the world around you. Traffic moves in predictable patterns. Planes cross the sky on invisible highways. Money flows through networks you can't see. The entire architecture of modern civilization operates on a foundation most people never think about. Satellites, thousands of them, circling silently above, holding everything together. Then, in an instant, they're gone. Not fallen, not broken, just gone. Signals stop, connections sever, and in the span of a single heartbeat, the United States steps backward 100 years. This isn't science fiction. It's a scenario military planners have war-gamed for decades. The targeted destruction of America's satellite constellation. And what follows isn't just inconvenience. It's collapse. The first minute is silence. Not the kind you notice immediately, but the kind that grows. Your phone is in your hand. The screen is bright, but something feels wrong. The little icons at the top, the ones you never pay attention to, are different. No signal bars, no data connection. You refresh. Nothing. You open another app. The loading wheel spins endlessly. Around you, others are doing the same. Tapping screens, frowning. Someone mutters about their carrier. Another person jokes about needing to restart their phone. No one panics yet because this feels temporary. Networks go down. Towers malfunction. It happens. But this time, it's not a tower. It's everything. At 2:35 p.m., GPS systems begin to fail. Not all at once, but in a cascading wave that spreads across the continent like invisible fire. In the air, pilots notice first. Navigation displays flicker. Coordinates drift. Backup systems kick in. But they're calibrated for minor disruptions, not total loss. Air traffic controllers stare at screens where thousands of aircraft were visible moments ago. Now, only radar returns remain. Blips without context. Planes without precise location. The first order goes out. Ground all flights. Every aircraft still airborne is told to land at the nearest available airport using visual navigation and radio guidance. It's a protocol from another era, one most pilots have only practiced in simulators. The skies, once a choreographed ballet of precision, become a gamble of judgment and luck. On highways, the disruption is quieter, but no less profound. Every delivery truck, every rideshare driver, every commuter relying on turn-by-turn navigation suddenly holds a device that can't tell them where they are or where they may go in. Some pull over, others keep driving, hoping memory and street signs will be enough. Traffic, which flows because of invisible algorithms adjusting lights and routing vehicles, begins to clot. Intersections jam. Congestion spreads. At 2:37 p.m., financial systems detect the anomaly. Transactions that depend on precise time stamps, synchronized down to the nanosecond by satellites, begin to desynchronize. Stock exchanges, which execute millions of trades per second, rely on that timing to function. Without it, the market can't determine what happened first, what happened second. Causality itself becomes uncertain. Trading halts, not by choice, but by necessity. The New York Stock Exchange goes dark. Nasdaq suspends operations. Across the globe, markets linked to American systems freeze in sympathy. Trillions of dollars, not destroyed but trapped, suspended in a digital purgatory where no one can be certain what anything is worth. Banks feel it next. ATMs stop dispensing cash, not because the money is gone, but because the machines can't verify account balances without satellite connectivity. Credit card terminals display error messages. Online banking portals time out. The flow of money, which has been electronic and instantaneous for decades, becomes a trickle, then stops entirely. At 2:40 p.m., emergency services begin to fracture. 911 calls still come through, but dispatchers face a new nightmare. They can't pinpoint callers. GPS location data, which automatically tells them where help is needed, is gone. Instead, they're back to verbal descriptions. A panicked voice saying they're near a gas station on Main Street. Which Main Street? Which gas station? In a nation of sprawling cities and identical strip malls, precision matters. Without it, ambulances take wrong turns. Fire trucks arrive at the wrong address. People die in the time it takes to find them. Police radio systems, many of which rely on satellite links for coordination across jurisdictions, fall silent. Officers are alone in their vehicles, cut off from central command, from backup, from the digital net that made modern policing possible. Some have maps in their trunks, paper relics from a different age. Most don't. The military knows before anyone else. Deep in command bunkers, screens light up with warnings. Satellite telemetry lost. Communication links severed. Reconnaissance feeds dark. For a moment, there's confusion. Equipment failures? Solar storm? Then the pattern becomes clear. Deliberate. Coordinated. An attack. But an attack by whom? And with what? No explosions were detected. No missiles tracked. Just a sudden, comprehensive erasure of America's eyes in the sky. The kind of capability only a handful of nations possess. Russia. China. Maybe others. The response protocols are clear, but they depend on knowing who to respond against. Without satellites, even that becomes guesswork. At 2:43 p.m., the power grid starts to feel the strain. It hasn't been hit directly. The lights are still on, but the grid is a living thing, constantly balancing supply and demand across thousands of miles. That balance depends on sensors and systems that communicate via satellite. Without them, grid operators are flying blind. They can't see where demand is spiking or where generation is dropping. They're guessing. In control rooms, engineers switch to manual protocols. They start calling power plants on landlines, asking for status updates. It's slow, it's imprecise, and it's not enough. Small imbalances, normally corrected in milliseconds, begin to cascade. One region pulls too much power, another pushes too much into the system. Breakers trip to prevent damage. Sections of the grid go dark, not from attack, but from blind, cascading failure. First, a suburb in Ohio loses power. Then a city block in Texas. Then an entire county in California. The outages aren't universal. Not yet. But they're spreading. And without satellite coordination, restoring power becomes a manual, region-by-region effort that will take days, not hours. At 2:46 p.m., p.m., the internet begins to break. Not the physical cables, but the routing. The invisible traffic control that directs data packets across the world relies on precise timing from satellites. Without it, networks start to fragment, connections slow, websites time out, streaming services buffer endlessly. Social media platforms, where millions are trying to find out what's happening, become inaccessible. The few connections that remain are overwhelmed. Forums crash under the weight of panicked users. News sites buckle. The digital town square, where information once flowed freely, becomes a maze of dead ends and error messages. Rumors fill the void. Someone claims it's a solar storm. Another says it's a Chinese attack. A third insists it's an internal system failure. No one has answers because the systems that provide answers are gone. Television networks, many of which depend on satellite uplinks for live broadcasts, scramble to stay on air. Some succeed using ground-based infrastructure. Others go dark. Radio, old and analog, becomes the most reliable source of information. AM and FM stations, still operating from earthbound towers, suddenly find themselves relevant again. People who haven't turned on a radio in years start searching for one. At 2:50 p.m., the agricultural sector begins to realize what's been lost. Modern farming is precision work. Tractors guided by GPS plant seeds in perfect rows. Irrigation systems, controlled remotely via satellite links, water crops with calculated efficiency. Livestock tracking, pest monitoring, supply chain logistics, all of it depends on connectivity. Farmers in the Midwest stare at equipment that won't respond. Autonomous harvesters sit idle. The spring planting season, already underway, grinds to a halt. Food production won't stop immediately. Crops already in the ground will grow. But the efficiency, the scale that feeds 300 million people and exports to the world, that system is broken. At 2:55 p.m., the shipping industry confronts its new reality. Container ships crossing the Pacific, oil tankers navigating the Gulf, cargo vessels approaching ports. All of them just lost their navigation systems. Ships have backup methods: celestial navigation, radar, radio beacons. But modern maritime traffic operates on razor-thin margins. Ports expect ships to arrive within hours-long windows. Routes are optimized to the nautical mile. Without GPS, that precision evaporates. Ships slow down. Some stop entirely. Captains unwilling to navigate crowded shipping lanes without accurate positioning. The global supply chain, already fragile, begins to seize. Goods stop moving. Warehouses wait for deliveries that won't arrive on time. Stores wait for trucks that can't find them. At 3:00 p.m., military operations worldwide shift into crisis mode. American forces in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, all of them suddenly deaf and blind. Drones fall out of the sky, their navigation systems useless. Precision-guided munitions become dumb bombs. Troops in the field lose contact with command. Naval fleets, accustomed to real-time intelligence from satellites, operate on instinct and protocol. The strategic advantage the United States has relied on for decades, the ability to see everything, to strike with precision from anywhere, is gone. Adversaries know it. And in capitals around the world, calculations begin to shift. Windows of opportunity open. Old conflicts, held in check by American surveillance and response capability, flare up. The world becomes more dangerous not because of what was destroyed, but because of what can no longer be seen. At 3:05 p.m., weather forecasting collapses. Meteorologists rely on satellite imagery to track storms, predict hurricanes, issue warnings. Without it, they're reduced to ground-based radar and observer reports. A hurricane forming in the Atlantic might not be detected until it's days closer to shore. Tornado warnings, which save lives by providing minutes of advance notice, become guesses based on local conditions. The National Weather Service issues a statement. Due to technical difficulties, forecast accuracy will be significantly reduced. People are advised to monitor local conditions and seek shelter at the first sign of severe weather. It's advice from a different century. And in Tornado Alley, in hurricane zones, that advice will cost lives. At 3:10 p.m., the first fights break out. Gas stations, where pumps require electronic authorization and GPS-synchronized payment systems, can't process transactions. Some stations still accept cash, but lines form instantly. Arguments start over who was there first, pushing, shoving. A punch thrown. Police are called, but they're overwhelmed with higher priorities. Grocery stores see a similar pattern. People who can't access their bank accounts wave credit cards that don't work. Managers try to explain. Customers don't want explanations. They want food. Shelves begin to empty, not from hoarding yet, but from a simple surge in demand as people realize they can't rely on delivery apps or online orders. At 3:15 p.m., schools and hospitals scramble to adapt. Schools dismiss students early, fearing parents won't be able to navigate to pick them up later. Buses without GPS follow memorized routes, but traffic chaos makes those routes unreliable. Some children are stranded. Some walk home alone. Hospitals activate emergency protocols. Ambulances switch to radio-only communication. Surgeries continue under generator power where grids have failed. But the supply chain for medical goods, which operates just in time with satellite tracking, is already disrupted. Blood banks can't coordinate deliveries. Organ transplants are delayed. The system holds, but barely. At 3:20 p.m., the government addresses the nation. Not on television, because many networks are still down. Not online, because the internet is fragmenting. But on radio, on the emergency broadcast system, a voice speaks with practiced calm. We are experiencing a widespread disruption of satellite services. The cause is under investigation. All citizens are advised to remain calm, stay informed via radio, and avoid unnecessary travel. Assistance is coordinated. coordinated. The words are chosen carefully. No mention of attack. No identification of an enemy. Just a disruption. Technical language for a catastrophe. People listen and they hear what's not being said. This isn't temporary. This isn't an accident. Someone did this to us. At 3:30 p.m., 1 hour after the satellites went dark, America is a different country. Not destroyed, not invaded, but disconnected, isolated. The systems that made modern life possible that made the United States a superpower are offline. And the question no one can answer is how long they'll stay that way. In living rooms, people gather around radios. In offices, workers abandon computers and search for paper and pens. In cars, drivers pull over and dig out old maps from glove boxes. The instinct to adapt is strong. Humans are resilient, but resilience takes time. And time, in a world without satellites, is measured differently. The first hour ends not with explosions or screams, but with a collective realization. We built a civilization on invisible threads stretched across the sky, and now those threads are cut. What comes next isn't about rebuilding technology, it's about surviving without it, about remembering how the world worked before satellites, about rediscovering skills and systems we thought we'd never need again. The satellites are gone, and America, for the first time in decades, is truly alone. By evening, the scale of the disruption becomes undeniable. The sun sets over a nation transformed. In cities, the usual glow of screens is dimmed. Windows that once flickered with television light now burn with candles and flashlights. The hum of connectivity, a sound no one consciously heard but everyone felt, is absent. In its place, a quiet that presses against the mind like physical weight. At 6:00 p.m., supply chains reveal their fragility. Warehouses across the country operate on precise schedules. Trucks arrive, are unloaded, depart for the next destination. All of it coordinated by satellite-linked logistics software. Without it, coordination becomes chaos. Trucks sit in parking lots, drivers unsure where to go next. Dispatchers on landlines can only manage a fraction of the fleet. In grocery stores, the evening rush finds shelves that haven't been restocked. Produce sits in distribution centers, wilting. Milk spoils in trucks that never arrived. The supply chain didn't break, it froze. And the food that exists, scattered across thousands of locations, can't reach the people who need it. At 7:00 p.m., the media landscape completes its transformation. Major news networks, those still broadcasting, rely on pre-recorded segments and in-studio anchors. No field reporters, no live shots from across the country. The ability to show the nation to itself is gone. Instead, anchors read statements, updates from government sources, speculation dressed as analysis. Local radio becomes the primary source of real information. DJs and talk show hosts, used to music and banter, become crisis communicators. They read community announcements, school closings, shelter locations, missing person reports. The intimacy of radio, one voice speaking directly to listeners in the dark, becomes a lifeline. At 8:00 p.m., infrastructure operators face impossible choices. Water treatment plants, many of which use satellite-linked monitoring systems, switch to manual operation. Engineers watch gauges and dials. Their attention spread thin across systems designed to run automatically. Most plants will continue to function, but the margin for error is gone. A miscalculation, a missed reading, and entire communities could lose access to clean water. The electrical grid, still partially operational, remains vulnerable. Engineers work through the night, manually balancing load across regions. They succeed in some areas, In others, they fail. Rolling blackouts, unplanned and unpredictable, sweep through neighborhoods. Lights flicker out. Refrigerators go silent. In winter, heaters stop. In summer, air conditioning dies. At 9 o'clock p.m., crime begins to rise. Not everywhere, not uniformly, but in pockets where desperation meets opportunity. Stores with darkened security cameras. Streets without working traffic lights. Police stretched too thin to respond quickly. The social contract holds in most places. Neighbors help neighbors. Communities come together. But at the edges, where trust is thinner, disorder creeps in. Looting starts small. A smashed window, a grabbed item. Then others see, and the calculation shifts. If everyone else is taking, why not me? Store owners stand guard with whatever weapons they own. Some successfully defend their property. Others watch helplessly as everything they built is carried away into the night. At 10 o'clock p.m., hospitals reach their breaking point. Emergency rooms flooded with patients from car accidents caused by failed traffic lights, from injuries sustained in the dark, from panic attacks and cardiac events triggered by stress, run out of space. Doctors and nurses work without the digital systems they rely on. Patient records are inaccessible. Test results take longer. Diagnostic equipment fails without network connectivity. In intensive care units, machines keep working, but the monitoring systems that alert staff to changes don't. Nurses physically check each patient more frequently. It's exhausting, it's inefficient, and it's the only way to keep people alive. At 11 o'clock p.m., the international response begins to take shape. Allies reach out through diplomatic channels, offers of assistance, technical support. But every nation faces the same question. If this can happen to America, with its military might and technological sophistication, can it happen to us? Suddenly, every satellite constellation feels vulnerable. Every dependency feels dangerous. Some nations offer solidarity. Others see opportunity. Trade competitors, geopolitical rivals, anyone who benefits from American weakness begins to act. Not overtly, not yet, but the calculations are being made. The balance of power, which seemed stable hours ago, is shifting in real time. At midnight, the first day ends. America is still standing. Casualties are limited, considering the scale of disruption. But the psychological toll is immeasurable. A nation that believed itself invincible, untouchable, has been humbled by the silence of space. The infrastructure that defined the modern age is broken, and no one knows how to fix it. In homes across the country, people lie awake. Some pray, some plan, some simply stare at ceilings, trying to process what the world has become. Outside, the sky is full of stars, more visible than they've been in decades, now that so much artificial light is dark. Somewhere up there, the satellites orbit still, silent and useless, monuments to a system that failed all at once. The question isn't whether America will recover. It will. Human resilience ensures that. The question is how long recovery will take, and what will be lost in the process. Lives. Certainly, wealth, undoubtedly, but also something harder to measure. The sense of security, the belief that technology will always work, that systems will hold, that tomorrow will look like today. That belief is gone. And in the darkness of a nation without satellites, a new understanding settles in. We are fragile, we are dependent, and we are no longer in control. The night deepens, and somewhere, in command centers and war rooms, in laboratories and listening posts, people work desperately to understand what happened and how to prevent it from happening again. But understanding takes time, and time, without the infrastructure to coordinate it, stretches and warps and becomes something no clock can measure. The satellites are gone. The first day is over, and America must learn to live in a world where the sky is empty and the ground is all that remains.